Hi, it's me. Welcome back to the Loud Lens. This is a personally requested episode from somebody who sent me a message asking me about loneliness in the creative industry. And at first I was like, lonely, and then I realized, yeah, loneliness exists. So I want to ask you, when was the last time you had a real conversation that wasn't about a booking, about your work, or about someone else's work? It was just about you, a person, away from all the photography or whatever it is you do creative wise. Because I think if we really think about it, we can spend all day talking to people, clients, followers, other photographers, and still feel like no one actually knows you or asks about you. And that's loneliness. And in photography, it's more common than I think we want to admit. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. Some of you aren't lonely at all. Some of you are just alone. And those two things are not the same. Like, I would say I am not lonely, but I spend a lot of my time alone working, but I don't feel lonely. And then the person who wrote to me said they spend a lot of time alone. And although they used to be comfortable with it, now they're starting to feel lonely. They wanted to know if it was normal. Of course, it's normal, but it's not great to maintain that if you recognize it's a problem. So I mean, I think the problem, put some context in it, it's bigger than you, like, because this isn't a you problem at all. I feel like we need to say this isn't a specific you. It's not about you. Because in the UK, about 1 in 4 adults feel lonely at least some of the time in the day. Younger adults and self employed people, that number starts to climb, and it climbs steep and heavy. And loneliness isn't just emotional, it's linked to anxiety, depression, even physical health over time. And we know about help the aged and like loneliness in the old people. Or maybe you don't know about that, but it can really, really affect people's physical health when they're lonely. Just because we're younger, maybe it doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. Now, if you layer that on top of a creative industry, particularly in this case, photography, you've got a career that is mostly solo, self-driven, built online, and heavily comparison based. Which I know it should be, I know, but it is. It is. So yeah, it's pretty much the perfect storm, isn't it? Can't think about. It. I've written that down. I've done this script, and I was like, oh god, it really is, isn't it? Oh. And I think photographers and creatives do get hit harder. I don't want to sugarcoat it. You work alone, even when you're busy. You can have 10 shoots in a week, back to back clients, and still spend 8% of your time editing alone, marketing alone, thinking alone, cleaning up your studio alone, packing your equipment alone. And that client interaction, while it's an interaction, I wouldn't say it's a connection. It's more like a performance. You're the business person, you're the fun creative. So you're putting on like a front or a mask, as my friend would say, to try and just get through the shoot essentially. And everything just starts to feel a little transactional. You start to question every transaction. Do they like me or just my work? Or are they being nice or are they networking? And it messes with your ability to trust connection. I will say it doesn't help when friends will be like, or sorry, say friends in inverted comments now. Are you coming to my party? You can bring your camera. Oh, babe, let's meet over coffee. Bring your camera. Or I'm going to a wedding. Bring your camera. I get that a lot. And now I'm like, oh, we're friends because I have a camera. Like one of my friends, she's an influencer, and she always says, "Do you want to come meet for coffee?" And you might think she'll say, "Bring your camera." She doesn't. She doesn't even she's like, "I just want someone to talk to." And it's quite lovely because she is quite up there. She's got a few, 100,000 followers. And it's interesting that we go and we don't take pictures of our time together. We don't take selfies. She just says, "Just you and me existing," and we have a chat and we put our phone. We have a thing actually where we put our phone away. The first one who answers their phone or looks at their phone has to buy the breakfast. And so far, I've had to do it twice because my phone rang and it was about my dog. So yeah, I had to. But yeah, it does happen. I also think that you outgrow people, and this is really weird, but as you change and mature through running a business, your mindset changes and your goals change, your standards change. And then suddenly you're not quite fitting in where you used to. You're not fully in the next level either of friendship. And then you're in that weird in between stage. I think that's where a lot of loneliness lives. I remember when I first left the military and I went self employed. I found it quite hard to maintain friendships with people who didn't understand the slug of like being self-employed. And then when I became friends with people who worked in for themselves, I was friends with a lady who ran a plumbing agency for ages and ages. She was at a level in her career where she just logged in and did a little bit of work and then she was happy to go about her business. Whereas I was still building a brand. So I had to spend a lot more time. And although she understood because she'd been there herself, we weren't at the same level anymore. So our friendship sort of fizzled out because I couldn't attend like the lunch that she was having and everything. And then friends who worked in an office like 9 to 5, they were struggling with the fact that, on a weekend I wasn't ready to go get steaming drunk, puke up in a flower pot on the way home, eating a kebab kind of mentality, because I've got a wedding that the next day. So it does kind of make you outgrow and you change. And I had to be in bed early. I was up early. I had to. And people, it's okay to not stay friends with somebody purely because your lives just don't meld together anymore. I think you live a lot in your own head, don't you, as a photographer? Creativity requires introspection. Is that the word? Introspection, internalization, but too much. And then it can slowly start to feel like isolation. That constant loop of overthinking your work, questioning direction, comparing yourself, it pulls you further inward. And then before you know it, you're not reaching out anymore. You're just staying in that circle. But I do think social media lies to you because you feel like you're surrounded by people because you've got loads of followers and everyone's interacting with you. But what you're really doing is watching someone else's life on social media, comparing it to your life and performing latitudes and plauditories to them because you want to maintain that friendship. But it's not a real friendship. It's a level of connection, I would say. But I wouldn't say it's a friendship. And those are very different things. Like, I get it. I do think not all loneliness looks the same though. I think it's very clear that there are, from what when I read, there was like 3 levels of loneliness. So, I did research for this episode. Can you tell? I was like, so there's emotional loneliness, no one you can be real with, like you can't let down your guard, okay? Social loneliness, you don't have a group, there's no these are my people kind of mentality, and creative loneliness, where someone doesn't understand what you do or doesn't get your vision. And I think that last one probably hits photographers the hardest because sometimes it's not just I feel alone, it's no one can see what I see or understand what I'm doing. And I think that's something I remember I dated a guy years ago when I was first starting out, and I was desperate to go off and photograph portraits by the sea or something with this girl. And my partner was getting really annoyed that, "Oh, it's raining, it's windy, I'm not gonna go." And then he was my ride because my car had, broken down, and I basically couldn't go. And it was interesting because in that relationship, I felt very alone. He had a very high-powered job, and he just kind of assumed what I was doing was a bit of a hobby, and he didn't understand why I was doing it. We drifted apart. I said we drifted apart, I ditched his ass, but, the polite way to say drifted apart, isn't it? I was like, I don't like you anymore, go away." Uh, it was really bad actually. Oh, how did yeah, it was really bad. I basically went to dinner with him, and then he was talking about, his something that happened in office, and, I'd won an award. And I said, "I've won this award." He went, "Oh, yeah, for your photo thing, yeah?" And then went back talking about the office, and I looked at him and went, "Do you know what?" He went, "What?" I went, "You are really, really boring today." That's what I said to him. And he went, "Huh? Huh?" Because you throw money at every situation. It doesn't make you an interesting person. The more I know you, the less I like you. And I just got up and left. I know, that was the only I was quite harsh with me. That was kind. Do you know what? That was really harsh of me, but I stand by it. And, do you know, I've bumped into him in the years since, and he is still the same person. I think I don't know what girlfriend he's on now, but it's still the same. He thinks money makes him interesting, and it doesn't. And unfortunately, it's attracted him all the wrong people. And he did said he was struggling to find his way now because everyone just wants him for money. I was like, well, that's what happens when all you do is pay for people to be around you. Shucks for you, buddy. Anyway, I diverted off of this, didn't I? This is about loneliness. I think your personality can play into it as well because we're not all wired the same. So there's introverts. You might prefer being alone, but preference doesn't make you immune to loneliness. You can still experience it. And extroverts like me, you need the interaction to recharge. So this industry, I will say, will drain you faster than you realize. I know that if I spend too much time alone, I don't do well. And I also think we need to remember about neurodivergent creatives, ADHD, autism, anxiety. These are so common in the world. And you might struggle with traditional networking, feel out of sync socially, and mask during shoots and crash afterwards. So you end up isolated, even when you really don't want to be. And sometimes the scariest bit is you might not realize you're lonely because it's not always obvious. I think loneliness in the creative industry shows up as burnout, overworking, snapping at people, avoiding messages, losing motivation, and telling yourself, I'm just focused." But actually, you've built a life with no emotional backup and nowhere to offload it. I will say, I had a little bit of a moment about a couple of weeks ago where I was really overwhelmed with work. I was quoting loads of work. I was running off from studio to studio to do loads of shoots. And I had 2 days off. And the first day I didn't know what to do. I was like, I slept quite heavily. I walked my dogs a lot. I started training for a half marathon again. I know, right? Idiot, idiot. If you know yeah, idiot. You can tell me I'm an idiot. But the next day I was like, what do I do? I'm going back to work. What do I do? What do I do? So I decided to do something I've always wanted to have a go at. I played Sims. You're gonna laugh at me, right? I used to play Sims when I was younger. So I played Sims and I named them all after politicians and I saw how quick it was to unalive them. But anyway, back to and you know what? I've now uninstalled it, but I did nothing that whole day. Sometimes I just needed to not do photography, not look at my marketing and not look at my and not answer emails and put an autoresponder on. I am out of the office for the day. Leave me alone. And it's I wanted to be alone, but it wasn't loneliness. I think we can be alone. Being alone isn't the enemy. I think that's where a lot of conversations go wrong. People think, oh my God, they're all alone. They must be really lonely. No, no, no. I'm alone because I want to relax, reset, if that's how you do it. Loneliness is where you can't reach somebody for social interaction, where you feel completely isolated, not by choice. Alone time is where sometimes your best work can happen. There's no noise, no opinions, no pressure. It's just you and your ideas. And that's where style can develop, confidence builds, and originality can happen. Solitude builds self trust. And if you're constantly surrounded by input, you sometimes don't trust your own voice. And being alone forces you to make decisions, back yourself, sit with your thoughts, sit there quietly and plan better. And I think that's really powerful and it is really good. And it protects you from creative burnout. Constantly being on set, chin wag with people. I love doing unit stills on movies and music videos and that. But sometimes I'm constantly having to talk to people and it becomes exhausting. I'm not hating it, but I'm tired. And then, I feel quite drained. Alone time can give me space, reset, and perspective. Sometimes that would be discussed and I'll be like, what? What? And then I'll just go away and, like, okay, all I needed was a nap. But there is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is I don't want to be alone, but I am. And solitude is I choose to be alone and I like it. Same environment, completely different experiences. But I think what can you do about it if you aren't lonely? I don't want to just sit with this problem and go, oh, yeah, I want to talk to you about how lonely it can be. And I understand your loneliness. I feel like I can try and help you some way to fix it. So I think we need to stop expecting our businesses to fulfill us emotionally. Your clients are not your support system and your audience are not your support system. That's not what they're there for. You want to build connection on purpose, not accidentally. So that means reaching out first, maintaining friendships, and having conversations that aren't about work. Yeah, it's going to take some effort, and I mean it. It's going to take some effort, but I think that's kind of the point. That's the reward because right now we could be losing contact with people that we love because we don't know how to, we haven't had time to reach out to them. Drop them a WhatsApp message, drop them an emoji if you can't do that much. Just poke them a little bit so they remember you're there. And I also think it's really important to find people who actually get your level or are on your level, not people you're teaching or competing with, but people who are walking alongside you. That's what real connection is. I have a friend here in Northampton, who's a photographer, who I hang out with loads. Both photographers. I have a friend in London who is a concept photographer. We hang out in London. We're both really high in our career. It's self-appointed high, but we enjoy interacting with each other because we I know the nuances of the industry, so we can talk. I don't choose to ignore it, okay? I also think you need to balance solitude and connection, not all or nothing. You need time to alone to create that connection and time with people to stay grounded with them. And if you ignore either, you'll start to feel it. It's weird. And I think another big thing is to get out of your usual environment. If your whole life is home, edit, shoot, home, repeat, rinse, repeat, you're setting yourself up. And even small change can help. Like maybe go edit in a cafe, although I hate editing cafes, it's noisy. Go on a shoot day, join a workshop, go for a walk with your camera. Just change it up a little bit. Create more than you consume is another thing. If all you're doing is scrolling, you're gonna feel worse, right? It's been proven that it's just not good for your mental health. Creating instead of so you can have something to post, gives you purpose, direction, and a sense of progress. I also think it's important to know when it's deeper than just mere loneliness, which isn't just mere loneliness, but other feelings, withdrawal, anxiety, depression. These are not just part of the day job at all. And that's when you need support. No, that I wanna just say, because this was a special request episode, I do wanna talk about the support, and I wanna talk about this properly before I end this. If you're listening to this and thinking, "Actually, this is hitting a little bit too hard," there is support out there. So if you're in the UK, you can reach out to Samaritans, Mind, Shout, and even your NHS via your GP. You don't have to sit this on your own. I would suggest Google them because I think the Samaritans number is 116123. But you can also text Mind on 86463 and text Shout on 85258. But I think a lot of us aren't acknowledging the loneliness. And I think it's a really nice episode for me to talk about on this because I think it is a problem amongst creatives. Photography can be lonely, but sometimes you're required to be alone. And if you don't understand the difference between those two things, you're either isolating yourself without realizing or avoid being alone so you don't have to grow properly. The goal isn't to eliminate alone time, but the goal is to make it a choice and not a trap. All right? Anyway, I'm done. See you all soon. And thanks for reaching out to me. I think this one made me rethink just how I spend my time, actually.